All right. So we're doing Code Academy, the Battleship lesson. Welcome to Battleship. It looks like that we're going to be building a simplified battleship game on a 5x5 grid. The player will have 10 guesses to try to sink the ship, and we're going to be using conditionals and functions in Python. So first instruction is click next to get started with Battleship. Alright, getting our feet wet. The first thing we need to do is set up the game board. Create a variable board and set it equal to an empty list. So, what I'm going to do first here is, let's see, Python W3 schools. Lists. Alright. So, board equals an empty list. Run. Next. Easy peasy. Make a list. Now we're going to use built-in Python function to generate our board, and we'll make it into a 5x5 grid for all of O's for ocean. Alright. We want to print O 5 times. Do this 5 times to make 5 rows. Since we have to do this, sounds like a loop might be better. Okay. So we create a 5x5 grid to initialize all zeros or O's on the board. Use range to loop 5 times. Inside the loop, append containing the 5 O's to board, just like in the example above. Note that these are the capital letter O and not zeros. Alright. So I'm going to make a for loop for X and board. Can I do that? My fear is that it has nothing to loop over because this is empty, so it won't do what I want it to. Use range and okay. For let's see, range. So what do I want? Loops. For loops. Range. Okay. So for X in range, and then okay, so I get what we're doing here. Okay. So starting from I still don't know why we're using range necessarily to loop 5 times. Maybe we're going to use it later, and that's why they want us to use range. Because, I mean, we're going to start off as 0. We're going to print O 5 times. And so, let range 5. And then do board dot append. And what we're going to append is capital O. And then, just to make sure that it works, I'm going to do print board to see what the value of board is. Okay, so let's see. It looks like rows are not represented as lists, so is it asking for inside the loop? That's where we're at. Append a list containing 5, just like the example above. What am I doing wrong? see, maybe. What if I tried this? Okay, so what I was thinking is that, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, so this was what I was trying to do. And so right now my for loop says, okay, well, for x in range 5, so it's going to do this 5 times. And then every time that this runs, it'll do this again another 5 times. And so on the first iteration, it'll do this 5 times. The second iteration will do this 5 times. So that's how we're getting 25 up here. I know we're going to need a 5 by 5 grid, and so that's what I was thinking. Let's see. Oh, okay. Maybe I just need this in my first for loop. Not necessarily the second. I think I'm just being silly. Append, okay. I think we're on the right track because this looks a lot more like a grid. And I think that we're going to need 5 every time it runs. And so my first iteration, I'll need 5 of them. My second iteration, I'll only need 5. My third iteration, I'll need 5. And so I have gone in the wrong direction in opposite directions, if that makes sense. Because my last one I had 25 O's, but that was all in one list. And then now I have the right structure, but I don't have it. I don't have a full 25 O's. So let's see. Okay, so use range to loop 5 times. Inside the loop, append a list containing 5. Okay, so I think I'm making this a little bit more difficult than I need it to be. Because what if I just do this? And I'm going to take my print out of the for loop because I want to see what it looks like when it's done. Python, okay, so maybe I need this. Bam, bam, bam. No, that's... Okay, so... Let's see. For x in range 5, so this loop is going to run 5 times. So if I do board append, that's going to keep it in the first one. Let's see. Stored and board. Does it want lowercase? And just in the example, it's giving us capital O's, so that then we know the difference between O and a 0. Let's see, let's try it. Huh. Alright, so what is happening here? Okay, this is so far the best that we've gotten to. What if we print board outside the loop again? Let's see, run. Wondering if we need to use this x variable for anything. What if I don't know what I need to know about append? Arrays. Maybe it might be in lists. Access, negative indexing, range of indexes. Loop through a list. List length, add items, append. What if I'm just making it way more complicated than it needs to be? So I'm going to try to copy this, see if this works whatsoever. No, that does not. There's one thing that I think that I could do is for x in range. Do this another 5 times. I'm not making this as simple as I need to print board. Oh, x in range. So I think that's what I want it to look like, but I want it to happen in one for loop. Use range to loop 5 times. Okay, I've done that. Inside the loop, append a list containing 5. I'm just starting to think that that's what I want to do. How many times for append? That's why I think that this 4x in range, this nested for loop is the right answer. Because it'll do this 5 times. Now, what if I try it with a capital O? Alright, this one I'm just going to view the solution for what it wants. Okay. Okay, because this will do. Okay, that makes sense. And so one of my times I did print this times 5 and it printed the 25 in just one solid list. And so it looks like that this will happen 5 times. And so that makes sense. So board equals an empty list for I in range 5. So this loop will happen 5 times. Board dot append. And so then every time this runs, it's going to print out, or it's going to do this another, let's see, it's going to print 5 O's into board. Let's see. One thing I am curious though is why did it print out when I don't have a print statement? So I'm going to try running that. Okay, now if I don't do that, remove it. Okay, perfect. That makes sense. Because it was weird for me to see something print without a print, so I was thinking that there might be a special function for append, and so for every time that this loop happens, we're going to put 5 into this. And so, let's see. So, for the first loop in board, so it should be like the first, let's see, print board. Whoa. Yeah, so for the first element, it'll have 5, and then for the next element, it should have 5. And so it's going to make 5 elements in board, and in each one of those elements, that's going to be for each element in this board, it's going to happen 5 times, and every time we do that, it's going to put 5 capital O's into each element. So hopefully that makes sense. Check it twice. Now that we've built our board, let's show it off. Throughout the game, we'll print the game board so the player can see which locations they have guessed. If already guessed, regularly printing out the board will help us debug our program, which is what I was trying to do. The easiest way to print the board would be to have Python display it using the print command. Let's give it a try and see what the results look like. Is this a useful way to print the board for our battleship? The answer is no, because we want it to print out each element on its own instead of this format, because we really want the 5x5 format. Custom print. Now we can see first delete your existing print statement. Done. Then define a function named printBoard. Print board with a single argument, board in. Now maybe I do that, I'm not too sure. Function. There it is. Yeah, oh, I have to have this. Print board, okay. Inside the function, write a for loop to iterate through each row in the board and print it to the screen. So for x in board, oh wait, for board in, what we want this to do is print x. Maybe that will give us what we want. Call your function with board to make sure that it works. So now we're going to try out our function. So print board, and then we're going to put our board into it. And so the way that this function should work is that we're going to say, hey, we want to use this function, and what we're going to put into it is board. And so it says, okay. And so, well, what do I know what to do with it? And so here's my list of instructions for print board. Well, first I'm going to put board, I'm going to set board in equal to whatever board equals. And then I'm going to loop through it and print out each x. And so each x is going to be each element in board. And so I guess for the process of the board, it would say from line 10, use the function with board, and then the board is going to be now defined as board in this function, and then that's how I get board to equal board in here on line 6. So there's, I guess, a constant redefining of what this is, because like, well, here I define it, but then in my next for loop I iterate it, and then I define what this function is, and then I redefine what, there's constantly reassigning of values here, and it can get quite complicated and tricky really quickly. All right, and so printing pretty. We're going to get pretty close to the playable board. Wouldn't it be nice to get rid of those quote marks and commas? Storing our data in a list, but the player doesn't need to know that. Okay, so letters, A, B, C, D, D, print, dot join letters, print, dot join letters. In this example, we create a list called letters, and we print A, B, C, D. The join method uses the string to combine the items in the list. Finally, we print A, B, C, D. We are calling the join function on the inside your function, inside your for loop, use as a separator to join statement each element of the new row. Can I just... Do I have to have something in front of dot join? Oh, I will. I have to... Okay. So... And, well, let's see. What do I want it to be joined as? Okay, so it should put everything together, and in between everything have a space, as far as I can understand. Maybe board dot join. Let's see. Python dot join string join sequence return value. Do I need this print? Huh. Okay, well, let's see what's going on here. So we have an A value, a B value, and a C value. This is a sequence of string. Print s dot join. Okay, so maybe what I need here is maybe I need to define a variable for the space, but dot join, no, bummer. Dot join board. For sequence item 0 expected string list found. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I think I'm being silly. Can only join an iterable. Okay, Python string method join returns a string in which the string elements of a sequence have been joined by str separator. Following is the syntax, so string dot join sequences. What do I do? str for join requires a string object but received an int. What is going on here? Okay, so I think I had that right. So somehow this is a str. Can only join an iteratable. inside your function, inside your for loop, use as a separator to dot join. It's in each row. Oh, inside your function. Okay, that's thank goodness. That's why. Oh, okay, that's why I was having a lot of difficulties here. Okay, so what we want is dot join x. Okay, so far that's definitely a step in the right direction because at least it's working right now to a certain degree. What if we did s dot join? What if we did? Ah. Huh. Okay, well the sequence that I want is going to be the single element at a time. So that single element will be an iteratable list. Do I need a separate? No. Let's try using a different resource. Where any iterable object where all the return values are strings. Maybe I need to set it to something? Oh ho ho! Okay, so the only reason I set it to something is because I see that it's set to something here. And the reason as to why that worked, I believe, is... Okay, so the reason as to why it wasn't working, I think, is because this return value wasn't being printed. I was only using x, I didn't change what x was. And so now I joined everything together with this space. And so this is going to be, well, what do I want to be in the middle of everything being joined together as, or how do I want to join them together? And so here I'm saying, by space. Right here I'm not saying I want it joined by anything. Here would be I want a couple of dashes in between. And then join, so it's going to be this dot join port would be something like, well, I want this joined together in my x or in my iteratable list or values. So when I do this, it should be all clumped together. This one should be with a couple of dashes in between. And so thankfully we can see here a little bit easier what's exactly going on. And well, it's like, well, every time this function runs, and so this is going to run for each element in our board in, and our board in is set to this 5x5, this 5 element list with 5 O's in it. And so for every row or element, I want to perform this function of this dot join and join everything in that row together with the space, and I'm going to print that row. So cool. Excellent. Now let's hide our battleship in a random location on the board. Since we have a two-dimensional list, we'll use two variables to store the ship's location: ship and row, ship row, and ship column or call. From random import random integer, coin equals random int 0 1, dice equals random int 1 6. Okay, in the list above we import random integer from low to high function from the random module. Okay, so I'm imagining that is going to be a module that comes inherent with Python, and so then I can use that random int import and we generate either 0 or 1 and store it in coin finally we generate a number from 1 to 6 inclusive. Let's generate random row and random column from 0 to 4. So define two new functions. So define random row. That's our one function. I don't know if it needs a parameter. Okay, that takes board in. And so I guess it's important to know that this board in isn't going to be set to anything until we call this function. And so I know that I am using it. Let's see, where else am I using it? Did they change this? Oh, well. And so board in as input. And then my second random call with board in as input. And so let's see, I think a better way to describe this board in argument here is it takes in this argument whatever it is, and then I'm going to be using this as a reference for that argument anytime inside the function. And so that's just for clarification for if I'm going to be doing the same thing with like a variable, so that when I'm working with inside a variable, I can see it's like, well, I can rename the variable for a moment while I'm in that function, so then I can know it's like if I was going to have an addition function, like a function that will take in a number and then add and do stuff with that number, I could do like number addition and then set that equal to whatever I do with the variable, and then that number addition definition just adds clarity for my sake so that I can know what's happening and where. And so I think that might be a little bit better of an understanding as to why we can. This board in is only going to be used in the function, and why when we do random row, I don't have to do, like when I call it to actually perform something, I don't need random row board in, that I can put something else in place of this board in argument. This function should return, so return a random row index and a random column index from your board respectively. Use random int 0, comma. I have no idea what this len board in part is or why we use it. Nice one. Then call each function on board. So I guess those are going to be rather identical. And then call each function on board. So then random row board and then random call on board. And so then I'm imagining this len board in part is going to be something like, it's going to be a shortcut for like it can't be two ends on the grid, they have to be so and so close together. Not entirely sure, but we used it, we got it to work. I wish they went into that a bit. Okay, good job. For now, let's store coordinates for the ship on variable ship row and ship column. You now have hidden battleship in your ocean. Let's write the code to allow the player to guess where it is. Oh, definitely going to copy this. Raw input asks the user and returns it as a string, but we're going to want to use integers for our guesses. To do this, we'll wrap the raw inputs with an int. And convert the string to an integer. Create a new variable called guess row. Guess row. and set it to int run input guess. Oh, okay, well I guess they did it for us already. Click run, and then answer the prompts by typing a number and pressing enter. Okay. Wait a second. Oh, well, this needs to be the same. Wait a moment. Oh, I need to do it twice for guess colon equals. I guess I'll just copy this again. Change this, and then break it. No, I guess it's important that I also changed this. Create new variables called guess row and set it to int. Maybe I don't need these if statements. Getting a little ahead of myself. Yeah, so if statement's unnecessary. I just wasn't going slow and reading the instructions. It's not cheating, it's debugging. Awesome. Now we have in Battleship and a guess from our player. The next few steps will check the user's guess to see if they are correct. While we are writing and debugging this part of the program, it will be helpful to know where the battleships are hidden. Let's add a print statement that displays the location of the hidden battleship. Before the lines prompting the user for input, print ship row print ship call, and that makes sense because we want to make sure that we know the values that we're looking for, or because if we want to test if it works or if it doesn't work, and what happens, and what happens when we think that it should work one way and it doesn't, because it's like, well, if I did up here, if I did 4 and 0 and I had my perfect guesses, then it should be a hit. But if it returns a miss, then like that's a problem because it's not working correctly. Or if I completely missed and did 10 and 9 and it returned as a hit, it's like that's a problem. We're gonna have to we know that we need to fix it. Okay. Prompting the user for what? For the value. Yeah, we did that, right? Why is this being slow? Perfect. So, easy peasy. Okay, now for the fun, we have an actual location of the ship and player's guesses, so you can check to see if the player guessed right. for a guess to be right, guess call should be equal to ship call, and guess should be equal to ship row. That makes sense. Example above is just a reminder about if statements. So what I'm thinking is if guess row is equal to ship row. See, I don't know if I'm thinking about or. Guess call is equal to ship call. And what I wanted to do is print it. 29 to check and see if guess. Okay, so just making sure I'm following instructions and I'm not getting ahead of myself again. On 29, use an if statement to check if guess row is equals to ship row or guess call equals ship column. In this case, print out, congratulations, you sank my battleship. When you run this code, be sure to enter integer guesses in the panel and where it asks guess row and guess call. Why does it take so long? One, 4, congratulations, you sank my battleship. Nice, easy. And so with this, the ship row and the ship column is going to be the random values that it generates. And so if my inputs, guess row or guess column, is equal to the randomly generated location, then that's a hit. So congratulations, you sank my battleship. Danger, Will Robinson. Great, of course, the player isn't going to guess right all the time, so we need to handle cases where the guess is wrong. And so this is probably going to be something where after every input, every guess, that we're going to change the board and then reprint it out. So print board 2, 3. Example, this prints out 0, the element in the third row in the fourth column. Add an else if we wrote underneath the if we wrote in the previous step. So else underneath the if in the previous step. Print out, you missed my battleship. Print, you missed my battleship. You missed my battleship. Set the list, okay. Set the list element at guess row, call x equal to x. Okay, so while we're still in this else statement, what we want to do is maybe do guess row. No, what we want is ship row. No. The list element at guess row. So what I want board at board let's see, I probably want for the syntax guess row and guess column to equal x. At the last line in your else statement, call print. So we're calling the function board, and we're wanting to reprint that board in the nice structure that we had it at, that the function puts it in. So mine is not working right now. You missed my battleship. Python must be integers, not tuple. Lists. Access items, this list. Maybe. Oh, that's list length. What I'm thinking here is list object has no attribute. Guess. I guess that makes sense. Because let's see. Let's talk out what I'm thinking. And so I guess 1 1. So 1 1. If it's I don't know, I guess if this is 0 1 1. And so I need to say I want the second row, or I guess I want the first row, first column. And so I'm thinking about how I accomplish that, because let's just suppose that 1 1 is right here, because I want this 1 1 to reflect an x. Maybe it is something like oh. Okay, so really the 1 1 is right here, and because this is going to be the first element in the array, or the first element in the list, second element in the list, third element in the list, fourth, fifth, and same thing. It's like this will be the first one in the column, this will be the second one in the column. I guess it's important to note that it is 0 based, and so this will really be 1 1 because it goes 0 1 bam, or 0 1 and then 0 1 bam. And so the way that I did that was with this board statement, I'm going to do board, and so I'm going to have this huge, so I'm going to have 5 elements, and in one of those 5 elements I'm going to have these 5 zeros, or these 5 O's, and so the location is board, what row, what column, and well, of course I want the X to reflect where they guessed and missed, equals X, and so I'm changing that O to an X. Alright, I'm going to take a break and call this video good, and I'll upload the next one in a bit.